It's not really about your website. The hardest thing to do to get people to do is to actually change their behavior, which means something like coming to a website they otherwise wouldn't have been looking for.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Hey Mom, I know you said I should be home by Wednesday, but the client needs me to stay a little bit longer. I'll call you when I'm on my way back.
On today's episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat, we talked to Mikel from MySMARTblog. Talk about how his company automagically creates blogs that are industry specific and helps brands grow. Let's dive right in. We could just jump right in. So I do appreciate you coming out, and I'd love to hear more just about your background.
Thanks. No, this is exciting. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. So just at the beginning, I grew up, I know we're going to talk a lot about business and all that kind of stuff. I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time that I grew up in the dirty jobs environment, you know, like the show, right? With Mike
I love that show.
So I grew up in the Southern Oregon coast on a farm. We had, it was actually a meatpacking plant. So we had feedlots and a butcher shop and all that kind of thing. And then in the summers, I spent my time in a commercial fishing boat, salmon and tuna fishing. And so it was like dirty work, hardcore blue collar production work, agriculture. And, but I was involved. My parents had always been self-employed. And so I was in that entrepreneurial kind of atmosphere from day one. And so there almost was never another path for me. I also am not a type of person who takes really direction really well from other people. I did spend a couple of years in the military, but I just was never, I always liked to carve my own path and figure, set my own schedule and do my own thing. And I was set up from the beginning with the understanding that that's a reasonable way to live life, with all of the ups and downs. Yeah. And I've got plenty of those. We can talk about some of those. So that's my background. I grew up in the Southern Oregon coast. I went in the military for a couple of years, spent 2 years living in Germany, which was a good experience. And then came back, went to school at University of Oregon, go Ducks. Okay. So yeah. And going to the Rose Bowl here in about a couple of days, actually. And then graduated with a degree in political science. Haven't used my degree a single day. But it was a good experience, and then went right into business. And so I spent the first 15 years of my career in the mortgage industry. So owned a mortgage a brokerage in Oregon and Washington. And then in the midst of my mortgage company, I actually was approached by some people, and I started a digital marketing company in Vancouver, Washington. It was early on in online property tours, before all of the big name property tour things and this like Circle Picks, the 360 degree tour places. Before any of that really came online, we started a thing called Home Tour Plus at the time. And so I built my first digital marketing company alongside my mortgage business. And it really revolved around teaching people how to do better online marketing, actually a combination of online and offline marketing, but in the real estate mortgage space. So that was my first experience in digital.
And so was it more the education side or doing it for people or?
Done for you.
Gotcha.
And that's going to be a recurring theme today too, I was taught a long time ago, there's this saying is find a need and fill it, right? So in the marketplace, identify a need, something that it's too difficult for them to do for themselves or too expensive for them to do, and find a better, easier way to be able to offer it. And so we picked this kind of niche within the real estate space that was a need. At the time, it was color printing, was very expensive. It was $1 a print at Kinko's, was the only option. And so we built kind of a variable printing system using Adobe products and an online ordering system where agents could order those flyers they put out in front of homes. Yeah. And so they could order those with really high quality graphic design, template based, but we would design them all. We'd print them on full color for them. And we'd ship them to them. We did all that for free. That was our accumulation model. Okay. So it was this service where we were able to go out and say, hey, you guys can get way better marketing tools to be able to offer to your clients than what you could do for yourself. And we'll do it for free. So what was the cost? What was the revenue driver, right? In the real estate industry, there are all these affiliated services that are required as part of a transaction. And the real estate agent is kind of the point of the spear, the tip of the spear, because they're always the first people in contact with the client. And so title and escrow companies and mortgage companies and homeowners insurance and home inspection and all these other affiliated industries want relationships with these real estate agents. So we said, hey, it would be cool if we could figure out a way to insert all of these third parties at the point of sale with the real estate agent. And so we said, well, what if we sold ads on the backs of the flyers, representative of the people who those agents work with, typically in a referral basis? But then because it was like right as digital was coming online, right, everything was going on, we said, wait, what if, since we're gathering all the data to do the flyers anyway, what if we actually built an online home tour? And so in not just offering them this automatic way to get these flyers designed and printed, but we actually put it into this kind of online home tour, which is like Zillow today. Like we were just really early on in that. And we said, we have all that stuff. We'll put it onto an online home tour as well. And then we'll drive traffic offline as people are driving around. The most interested people driving around neighborhoods, looking at homes, picking up flyers, will then have a link driving people back to Home Tour Plus. And that was the digital part of our business. And it grew really fast, out of the gates, about 18 months to our first $1 million in revenue. And we grew nationwide. We had people, all over the country. And like lots of stories, though, the market changed. Digital printing technology shifted massively in a couple of years to where everybody had a printer in their office, and it took away our value proposition. Mm-hmm. And so ended up moving on, had to shut that company down and went back to the mortgage industry. I had my mortgage business the whole time, but I went back personally to produce because I had to make up for a few $100,000 I lost by the end of shutting that thing down. So that's how I got into digital, though, and then eventually made the transition to now MySMARTblog 10 years ago.
That's cool. So I mean, it's what was the process like to say, hey, we're going to do this for free? Because I mean, most people, it's whenever you throw the word free around, it's like, oh, well, we're going to lose money. How did you build a process around that? What was the thinking through finding the revenue stream by offering something for free?
Yeah. So, it's interesting looking back at that. The key is you just have to find something people are willing to pay for first, right? There's lots of people that have good ideas, but I think that's one of the things that I've always been good at is figuring out what is the revenue driver, because a business is driven by profit. Maybe not all businesses, if people go out and get a little bunch of funding and then they just burn through it all. Yeah. I've bootstrapped everything I've ever done. So it's like, the first question is, okay, how do we make money with this? And then you kind of go backwards from there. And so for us, it was like, what are people willing to pay for? And what they're willing to pay for is access in the real estate and mortgage world, because it's not necessarily because real estate agents are always the best business people or the most, there's tons and tons of people in that industry, just like everything else. But the reality is that when people are looking to buy homes, they go to talk to a real estate agent typically first, right? And just like if you're looking for an appliance, you go to an appliance store, right? And so it creates this dynamic within that industry that they're going to have first contact with the most likely clients. And so everybody else, I used to teach loan officers as I'd hire and train them, is building a business in sales is like 4 legs of a table. And in the mortgage industry, which was my business, 1 leg of the table has to be agents. So everything that we were doing was kind of formed around this idea of how do you get contact with agents and then provide them with enough value to develop a relationship so they'll be willing to refer clients going forward to you. And so it was really that is like, what would people be willing to pay if we could collapse that sales cycle, if we could get them tighter in with the agents that they either already work with or the agents they want to work with by using this as a tool to get relationships, and what would be the amount of money they would pay? And then can we afford to produce the product, the free product as the accumulation model? Can we afford to do that with the advertising revenue that we can generate? And the reality is that we just did. And many of, one of the most important things is we systematized everything. So you just mentioned scale. Scale is a really important word for a lot of reasons. But when you're looking at especially when there's a tangible product that you have to deliver, you just have to figure out how do you compress the cost, right? How do you do it in a larger scale and do it for a lot less? And then of course, in our case, the real product that we were selling was advertising, because we were putting both them out at the point of contact with the client driving around picking up the flyer, but then also representation on the online home tours as well.
No, that's cool. And I love the whole wanting access. And I think that's a huge part of real estate and real estate agents, with more companies like Zillow and Open Door and all of that, providing more access to information. How do you see just the real estate industry changing, pivoting, whatever it is? I mean, how do you see that role evolving, and what do you think it'll take to keep the value of a real estate agent?
Yeah. So this is a lot of what I talk about right now. There's a massive shift. I mean, the reality is that if people in the real estate industry aren't paying attention to what's going on right now with regard to technology specifically, they're going to have a really difficult time staying in business 5 years from now. Zillow built their business because they are the largest, most trafficked real estate website in the world now. They built that whole business off of the backs of independent real estate agents and mortgage lenders who are giving them the inventory, which is all of the properties that were listed. But then not just that, but the revenue they were collecting was from their Premier Agent advertising, where they would generate leads for agents and also mortgage lenders and other people who are paying them to grow that platform. And it's really interesting where they literally took this business model and just shafted everyone who grew their business. I mean, literally. I mean, and to the degree that, and it escapes his name right now, but Spencer Raskoff is his name. He's the CEO, was the CEO of Zillow, is now teaching at one of the Ivy League schools, teaching a course about growing online companies with this very specific model about a symbiotic relationship within an industry and growing scale to the point where you can literally turn on the industry and become a competitor with all of the people who you had a symbiotic relationship before. He's teaching that as a model of, it is scary. It's something, again, people have to be, but the reason for it, there's a bigger reason. I mentioned scale. And because things can be done digitally now in a way that just wasn't available 10, 15 years ago, and all that's evolved over time. And so if people aren't paying attention to what's happening, this generational shift is going to eat people's lunch. There's just no way around it. So companies like Opendoor as an iBuyer, the fintech companies that are out there like Rocket Mortgage, there's, obviously Zillow as a real estate platform are able to do things that individual agents or individual loan officers, people participating in the industry can't do. The way that the good news about it though, is that, if you look at the way that people who actually buy real estate or use any of these affiliated services, actually even today make decisions of the person that they'll use, the service that they'll buy or the provider that they'll use, they still are going back to the traditional way that human brains have evolved, which is through relationships. So they're asking for referrals. Yeah. They're using the internet to gather information, but they don't use the internet to actually. There's a study that was done recently, and it showed that just recently, only about 10% of buyers used it was actually less than, I think it was 9 point something percent of buyers use the internet to find the agent that they wrote an offer to buy a home. Less than 10%. Now, the interesting thing isn't just that it's 10%, which is a pretty low number, but it's the exact same statistic as 10 years ago. And so even with the evolution, think about the last decade of everything that's happened with technology, right? I mean, all of these platforms that have grown and built up, and the ease of use and the availability of deeper and broader information around real estate, the presence of agents to be able to participate in these advertising networks and get this massive exposure. None of that has changed the way that human beings actually do the process of finding who they're going to use to buy a piece of property. So the way to compete is I teach people all the time, you have to go where they can't go. So these big companies can do these things at scale that smaller people or smaller producers can't. What they can't replace is those local relationships. And so it's the combination. It's how do you still drive deep and valuable relationships in your local market, but then also use technology to support and amplify that. And it's the combination of those two that'll allow people to compete. But there's this bigger generational shift that's going on too, that, 20 years from now, the game is completely changed again.
Yeah. So. And I mean, it'll probably be a decade or two, but I think you hit the nail on the head where it's not so much using a real estate agent to find the property, but I think it's more important than ever for real estate agents to use data to see who are the different home buyers, who are the sellers, and what makes them tick in curating content that speaks to them. Are they a family of four and looking for family activities? Do they have kids under 5? Are they single? Whatever it is, but using all the data that's out there to then tell stories about essentially showing how they could live in these different homes or neighborhoods, whatever it may be. And I think that instead of real estate agents saying, hey, look at what's for sale, it's identifying interests and what people want out of a house and showing how they could essentially live there. And it just goes back into the content creation rather than trying to give the information, which the internet can do very well. Right. It's building that relationship with the local community. And by doing that, it's really speaking to, it's just like building any relationship. If I'm going to talk to someone that everything I'm talking about, they have no interest in. We're not really going to build a relationship. Right. But if they love classic cars and we're talking about 67 Mustangs and all that, you're going to build a relationship a lot quicker. And I think it's such a big, I mean, eventually people might not even want to buy from another human being when it comes to a home. But I think you're right. It's going to be a decade or two before we see that. And I think the most important piece right now is building those relationships. And it's using marketing, content creation to then build those relationships. Yeah. The content is such a powerful and important piece of the equation. And I think we're here doing this podcast interview on video, and video is the only way you can translate your personality digitally, right? I mean, really. I love that you say that. Yeah, it's true. And so here's the thing is there's different types of content. We at MySMARTblog, we produce channel-driven content. So it's just typical like credibility building, expertise building type blog posts that make you look like you know what you're talking about within the industry. Yeah. But they're relatively generic. I mean, as far as we serve people all over the country. And so we can't be, putting out posts about snow for people that are here in Phoenix, right? So, I mean, we have to be somewhat vanilla in terms of that stuff. It can still be good quality, high quality posts and information that we write. But that's the kind of stuff that can be consistent and updated frequently, that when someone's looking you up and searching you out, they just see that there's frequently updated information. But when you go to things like video, which I think is such an important thing, it's what you're talking about, using technology to drive relationships. There's two things that you pointed out. One is there's an old saying, the riches are in the niches, right? And so when you're looking at marketing in a local community, a lot of times I like to teach people that you have to go back to what it is that inspires you, or what do you do in your community that you're already engaged in, or that you're interested enough about that you'll put your time and energy into without getting paid. Because in lots of those environments, whether they be charitable causes, social organizations, different things, sports organizations, different things like that, you'll find influencers in those communities that aren't your traditional influencers, that when you build deeper relationships, they're actually impacting and creating your own sales force out in the marketplace. So the one thing is finding ways in marketing your service is figuring out a way to be able to identify niches of people too that you can connect with. So I'm a veteran, so I naturally am drawn to veterans causes, right? Uh-huh. So that would be if I was selling real estate or mortgages, which I'm not because I have this digital marketing company. But if I were, that would be one of the areas that I would choose to create content, to try to connect with people, to let them know that whether or not it's a completely cold contact that knows nothing about me, which is a very low likelihood of conversion. That's that 10% who just blindly find someone on the web and then bam, you somehow hook into them, nurture that relationship long enough that there's some trust built, and then they contact you. But the more important people are the people like in your local community that you actually build these relationships, who then seek you out or refer someone else. And they use the internet to what I call, they validate the strength of the referral today. And so it's using then video, where video really comes in is when someone comes to your site and they see you talking about these things that you're passionate about or ways that they connect. That's the way that normally before the internet, we would have done you and I meet, and we just find out we have points of common interest, and all of a sudden we drive a deeper relationship more quickly, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's where video, I think that it's the stacking of content. It's using the best application is really using the combination of things where you can automate and outsource certain types of things to be able to build a really strong online presence. And then if you really want to go to the next level, I mean, if you really want to have the most kind of comprehensive and impactful online presence, it's being willing to get your personality out and available to the most interested prospects at the most opportune times. And there's nothing that does it like again, talking to people directly through video. Yeah, I mean that's why we're all in on video. It's I mean, with blogs, with photos and all that. I mean, you can kind of get it, but once you can hear people's passions and you kind of build a relationship without even meeting, which before your initial meeting, there's a feeling of a connection already, and it's crazy. Like, as we've been doing more of these and meeting some people, it's like, oh yeah, they'll reference something that was in a podcast, or like, oh yeah, I know that you're excited about that. You mentioned it in this episode or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's just cool. And, you mentioned scale a lot. That's, I guess, the thing that we struggle with. I mean, it takes people producing this, it takes editing and all that. And what are your thoughts on just trying how could this be scaled? You know what I mean? And I think that's where that room, the bigger over there, room, doing different things like that, building a complete digital, like a virtual environment where you can, you could literally
film Star Wars. I mean, right? At the end of the day, with post-production. So that's, doing that kind of stuff is stuff that you can do where you don't have to move around. You can be quicker, more efficient, less costly today. One of the things that I think is the megaphone effect though, too. It's so important in terms of, I'm not a very good self-promoter. Like that's one of the things I wish I was better at, to be honest. Like there's lots of people out there, especially in the digital marketing space, that will go, like they'll literally have a plan on a napkin, have no idea how to deliver a single thing that they're telling people that they're going to sell. And they'll get on there, pound their chest, and they look great on, they tell the story really well, but they actually have there's no fulfillment. And that's why so many people get burned with online marketing, right? Because honestly, a lot of those gurus just don't deliver. It's
such a negative connotation, digital marketing in general. And
I'm not that guy. Like I have a really difficult time. I think about it. I think about all these great things I want to share with people, but then when it's time to turn the camera on, it's hard for me to do it. So one thing is you have to schedule, you have to plan it out. You have to, force, like everything else, you have to force yourself to do it when you're not comfortable. And I think over time you do get more comfortable understanding that you don't have to be perfect. You can flub your lines. People don't really care. It's like public speaking. It took me a long time to understand that really at the end of the day, most people in the audience are cheering for you. They want you to succeed. And I think with video, that's the same thing. And then scale though, the megaphone, when I'm saying that, there's two things. One, going back to this idea, there's no other way to get your words, get your message out and do it in a way that connects with people like you can with video. And the second thing though, is your ability to then really, to push that in a worldwide way now where you can get an audience worldwide. But what people have to understand is this idea of creating viral videos, is just not realistic. That takes even some of these, guys that are really good at it. I mean, it's a whole production team. It's lots of investment, whether it's a lot of dollar investment, maybe not sometimes, but huge talent investment.
Talent, time.
Yeah, time. So the idea of someone doing this. But the key is that it's actually not that difficult with video to actually run relatively inexpensive ads, engaging someone that knows you guys do video advertising and marketing and that kind of thing, engaging a good quality company that can actually facilitate that for you. It's not a huge expense to get really massive exposure. And there's no question that video is the fastest way to build an audience and get a message out there. So I think it's the combination of those things. I think it's getting over that natural aversion to being willing to put yourself out there. And then connecting with people who can help you expand and use that megaphone effect to drive, interest. Is the two things. That's what we're doing, at MySMARTblog now. With this restart, I mentioned, 6 months ago, I decided to take this to the next level. We've been in the real estate and mortgage space. We're looking to expand this same message of what we teach in terms of building this profitable online presence and closing this online credibility gap isn't just limited to real estate agents and mortgage lenders. It really expands to every business where I talk about the emotional sale. So it's I use the number 500 and up. That could be different for different people, but it's when the oh crap factor kicks in. It's like, I don't want to make a mistake. So anytime you're thinking about buying anything or a service, or it could be healthcare related, it could be anything that there's I really don't want to mess this up. We as human beings revert back to the way that we've developed for thousands of years as a society, as a community, and we go to things that we know, like, and trust. Yep. And that has been referrals. And again, this is the big shift. This for virtually every business that's driven like this, that are relationship driven, service-based businesses, largely, when you're not just selling a $20 widget off of Amazon, right? The big difference, the big thing that the internet has done is it hasn't changed the way people select the vendor, because they're still selecting the vendor by going out and asking for a referral, right? What it has changed, though, is if I was to tell you right now, I'm going to do this. This is kind of fun. We'll do it. We can edit it out later if it doesn't work, right? Okay. So, man, I just went to this fantastic Italian restaurant. It was so good. The best food ever. The service was immaculate. It was such a great experience. It's like an hour away, but man, I can't tell you how great it is. Okay. So I just told you this fantastic thing. What's your first thought that you would do after hearing about this great restaurant that's an hour away?
I'd probably go research it and see.
You'd look it up, right?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Our natural reaction is to look it up. Now, I could have given you, I'm thinking about for my next webinar, I'm literally going to do this as a poll question and tell people this big embellished story, and then say, pick one thing. Like, would you just drive? Would you just get in your car and drive an hour and go over and see, right? Would you just buy the thing without even looking or doing anything? Or would you get out your phone and Google search it and look it up? Okay, here's my thing. The whole idea is that virtually everybody will answer the same way, which they will now pull the supercomputer out of their pocket and they will now do research, which I'm going to turn this off so it doesn't ring while we're doing this. Well, never mind. Anyway, the point is they're going to pull up the supercomputer out of their pocket. They're going to research that and they're going to find out for themselves. So what they're not trying to figure out what they're trying to do is validate the strength of the referral at this point. 15 years ago, that didn't happen. If you had told me about, or I had told you about that restaurant, you really only had two options: get in your car and drive over there. Well, that was really your only option, right? or call them or not go, right? Because there was no way to validate it. But where the internet stepped in and changed the game for every business is that period of time between now when that embellishment happens, someone tells someone about any service like that, and when they actually make a conscious decision to go and take advantage of that service, there is a period of time in between there, and I call that the credibility gap. And the credibility gap is the biggest opportunity for businesses to do what needs to be done in that short period of time to validate the strength of the referral. So again, people are still going to seek out referrals. They're going to go out and ask people they know, like, and trust for information for really important decisions. But instead of just now going and using that like we would have, we've been trained for thousands of years, we've been involved that's the way that you protect yourself, right? Is that you reach out to the trusted network. The difference is now that everybody thinks they're an expert. They have Google at their fingertips. They can search for anything in the world. And here's the real key to it is in the absence of information, with the vacuum of information, the internet isn't strong enough. It's at least right now. Now, I think that this is the generational shift. I think 20 years from now, this changes. I think lots of things are going to change over the next 20 years. But the person is not going to then, if they can't find the information they want to validate the strength of that single referral, they're likely not now just going to do some blind search and find some other alternative. Yeah. What they're going to do is they're going to go back out and ask someone else they know, like, and trust for another referral. And that process will repeat until they can connect the two things: the strength of a referral with the validation of looking it up. So it's the information that people can find out about a product or service after the point of referral that are the clients that actually turn into paid customers, people that are actually spending money with a business or an individual, like a provider.
And so how does a company validate that referrell? So they hear 2 or 3 referrals, cool, they go search. What is it that a company can do to then validate that referral?
Right. So interestingly enough, I mean, this is I've been working on this for years. In fact, I started this company 10 years ago from a conversation.
And maybe before we get into that, we mentioned your company a couple times. Yeah. What is it? How did it start? And was this the first thing that you started after the mortgage stuff?
Yeah. So great. I appreciate that. So but don't let me forget about, get me back on track on the other question. So what ended up happening was that when the mortgage crash happened, I was living in the Northwest. I wanted a change of environment anyway, because living in the Willamette Valley area through, in Oregon, you live with a lid on for at least 6 months a year. There's a lot of rain and overcast. And I wanted to get out of that and get into the sun. And so I decided to move here to Arizona. So there was a big shift that was going on. And also, like, I was in the mortgage industry for 15 years and I really liked it. It was a great industry. I did very, very well in it. It gave me a lot of time, freedom, flexibility, ability to do and pursue other interests. But it was never a passion for me. It was something I was just good at. And I was good with clients. I was able to deliver a really good service. And so when I mentioned I had my mortgage company, and then I started this digital marketing company. And that was my first experience building scalable technology solutions, stuff that could help people do their business better. And I found that for me, I have a love for teaching. That's something that I'm the most passionate about, is just helping people live their life better, do business better. And I call it, like, I like to see the light go on in their eyes. It's like the aha moment. Yep. Russell Brunson talks about the epiphany bridge, right? It's helping people come to their own epiphany, their own understanding of something new and different. And so I found that I really enjoyed that. Now, in the transition, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to go do public speaking, teach people about referral-based marketing, and then sell books and tapes or whatever from the back of the room, right? That was my plan. And in the midst of that, I actually got into a conversation with a very high-producing mortgage loan officer down in Dallas, Texas, $100 million a year producer. And so he contacted me about some referral marketing consulting. And not that he didn't already have a really strong business, but that's an indicator of someone who's also, the successful people still are looking to learn new things, right? They're reaching out, continually educating themselves. And so we struck up a conversation, and this was, again, 10 years ago. So this was kind of as social media was still just kind of exploding. And content marketing and blogging and all that was still kind of just new, not new, but still hadn't really exploded in the way that it has today. And so he had all these great systems in place, and in terms of marketing, but the one thing that he couldn't figure out is he couldn't figure out how he was connected with all these people on social networks, but didn't know how he'd stay in front of them frequently, or he was trying to build a WordPress blog at home at night, you know, after work, and none of that was working out. And so I literally did a one-off consulting project with him, and I said, yeah, I had this technology company, and the combination of that and understanding the industry, I could build you a marketing system that would make you look like an expert online. It would connect you with social networks, would have content and all that kind of stuff. And at the time I had said, yeah, but you're going to have to we're going to have to hire you a virtual assistant, or you're going to have someone to write content. And, you know, that was the hang up. That was the difficult part, because what he said, and a very intuitive guy, he said, you know, this sounds great. And it was, I was charging him $5,000. So it wasn't like a small amount of money for this like one-off project that was no one had ever really done before. And he goes, no, the $5,000 really isn't that big of a deal. He said it totally would make sense. But here's the one thing is if I pay you to do this and you hand it off to me, then I just know it'll never do anything. It will just sit there because I'm never going to write content, and I'm not hiring another staff person to do this. And so this whole idea circles right back to what we said before of find a need and fill it, is that for the vast majority of people trying to utilize technology, the only offerings really that are out there are twofold. One is teaching and coaching, right? Someone builds a course and they'll sell you a course. So now you have to sit and do it go through the course and do it all yourself. Or the other option would be agency model, right? Where it's all done for you, but it's egregiously expensive because it's agency work, right? Yeah. And so those are the only two options that were out there. And I said, you know, what if we could automate this process? Like, remember I built that digital marketing, the design process with the Adobe software, this variable marketing system and all that. So I said, what if we could automate this process of content marketing? And interestingly enough, at the time, there was actually someone in the mortgage industry that had built a software that could do automated content in channel-driven format, like Associated Press, right? And so I, in the midst of this, I connected with this other guy, Dan, and he had this company. And so I became a white label for this because it was my solution to say, Michael, no, I can deliver this and we can automate the content feed. So we'll update the content and write and publish content for you every business day that makes you look like an expert. And it'll be ghost written, looks like you wrote it, published automatically to your social networks, but you'll never have to turn it on to make it work. And he was like, oh yeah, no problem. Okay, let's do it. So I did that. I built out this system, delivered it. And then I moved here and I sat by my pool for three months here in Arizona, just trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And then I called him back and said, hey, how's that going? He said, you wouldn't believe it. I said, he goes, like at least 10% of the people coming into my office taking loan applications are telling me they're seeing me on social media.
That's $100 million.
$100 million producer. So it's a lot of volume. There's a lot of people, right? Yeah. And so I was like, oh, really? He goes, I said, well, have you logged into this? He's like, did you ever even send me a password? He's like, I have no idea. I don't know how it's working. And so it was this thing, like little kernel of evidence, right? Like, oh my God, there's something here. And then I started looking at the landscape. Again, a little lesson for business owners. Like I looked at the landscape and I said, okay, what are the solutions that are, well, there isn't anything. There's a gap in the marketplace for this completely automated solution that no one seems to fulfill. Then I went to like WordCamp and things like that, because I was just learning how to do this stuff myself. And of course I bring up this idea. Well, here's what I want to do. I'm going to build this automated marketing system where we can write content and channels and deliver it for companies, make them look like an expert, but they never have to turn on their computer. They can just focus on the high dollar activities in their business. I literally got laughed out of the room, man.
That's a very good sign. That is a very good sign if that happens. I mean, it really is.
They were like, you're crazy. No one's ever going to do it. It has to be authentic. It has to be. And I'm like, well, but there's this massive demand. Yeah. There's this massive group of people who want this service. And if the only options are do it yourself, they'll never do it. Yeah. Or egregiously expensive agency work, they're never going to do that either. Well, why wouldn't we just deliver a solution? So that's what inspired starting this company, MySMARTblog. And that's what we've done for, again, 10 years, is literally write and publish content in the real estate and the mortgage space. We also have some attorneys that have been clients, specifically the bankruptcy legal world. That was a partnership that I built with a guy that was writing content in Portland. And so we've done that for now about 10 years, every single business day.
Wow.
I ended up acquiring that software company and so I became their largest client as a white label. And then we acquired that. So now we own that all in-house. And that was kind of the inspiration of how that happened, how we started going into this. So then over time, we built this company for 10 years, thousands of users across the country. And we, just like any business does, it's a collaboration. It's not any one genius that does it. It's a matter of going through iteration after iteration and working with clients and finding out, and they ask you to do things, or can you do this? And you find out solutions. You try a lot of things. Big entrepreneurship thing is you got to be ready to fail, right? I mean, I tell my kids all the time, they see dad doing this and they're like, oh yeah, that's what we want to do, because they see all the benefits of it. Yeah. I say, yeah, but you just got to understand that I've had big losses too. And you just have to win more than you lose. And you have to be willing to continue to try new things. And so as we've evolved over time, and this is where I'm getting back to this, what do companies have to do, is that we built a stack of solutions for people, and we still didn't, it never was crystallized into the credibility gap message. Yep. And a few good things have happened over time. In the way that technology evolved and the way that human beings use technology changed, all in a way that supported this whole process. So where we are today is, I thought we were late to the game in blogging 10 years ago. Find out that the way that social has developed and the reliance on it and the way that search has evolved and everything else, it's more important today than it was 10 years ago. And it will be more important 10 years from now than it is today. And so at working with clients and doing that consulting level and providing the service over 10 years, we built a stack of services. And 2 years ago, I went through a process again of kind of trying to think through what would be the next steps, or what's the next opportunity. In digital, you kind of always have to be evolving to some degree. And so I went through a coaching program. And so a little plug for Aaron Fletcher. He's out in California. He's a great guy, Fletcher Method. And he has a real unique ability to take the difficulty for many entrepreneurs is that we have it all in our brain. Like, we understand what it is for ourselves. It's really hard to put that into some kind of tangible format, right? Mm-hmm. And he has a process that's really good for that. It's really good for if it's well defined, you understand what it is. It's really good to be able to make it into a roadmap. And what I was able to do is take this his kind of coaching and the format, and I was able to take this stuff that we developed over, at that point, 8 years, and develop this roadmap. And that's literally what it is. There are 7 credibility markers that I've looked at, and there might be more, but at this point we have 7 in our roadmap that every company really has to have in place in order to create what I call a profitable online presence. When I say profitable, I mean profit is the motive here, right? Yeah. And so it's, what are the boxes that have to be checked off by a consumer when they are looking to validate the strength of the referral? Remember that all of the business that's actually going to close, all of the clients, digital marketing agency, you guys do video marketing work, ad work and all that kind of stuff. The people that likely will turn into clients for you are probably going to be referred to you at some level, whether it's a digital referral, someone emails somebody, or somebody refers them through Facebook or whatever. And then they're going to look you up online. They're going to look at the quality of your work, just like I looked you guys up and watched your videos. I was so impressed with the quality of your editing and everything you guys do. And then that credibility gap's going to get closed, and then they become a paying client, right? That's the kind of client journey these days, right? And so there's these 7 specific things that are the boxes that people have to check off, or make it easier for people to check off in their mind, in order to say, yes, indeed, the embellishment that came from the person that I trust at the point of referral is indeed true. Mm. Therefore, it makes sense for me to move forward and make contact with this company.
Are you able to go into those 7 boxes? Because I would love to know what those are. Because I mean, basically, loved the journey that you just took us on. And basically, I think it's producing content that helps you be credible. It shows that you know what you're doing. It shows, the proof is in the pudding. It is. And I'm interested to hear what those 7 are. Yeah. And it's because, I mean, that's the whole reason why we're doing this if we start running ads for video production and all that, sure, people will see it, but until it comes from someone, that's when all of a sudden they'll come back, look and go, okay, these guys kind of know what they're doing. Yep. And that's where it comes from. And so what would those 7 things be?
Yeah. So this is the exercise in memory, right? When you're nervous and everything. But I talk about this a lot. So I'll go through them. So the first thing is just a professional online presence. Okay. So and what we mean there is the website. And so we use WordPress because of its blogging capabilities and its ability to interact with all the other social networks. It's the 900-pound gorilla in the content marketing space. There's ways, if you have some other type of website that's already built on a different framework, that you use it as an ancillary or a complementary website in addition, and just tie everything together. And so that's what we do for a lot of clients, that's the case. They have an industry type website that they want a blog-based website for content marketing, but you really have to have an outbound strategy website, which is a blog-based website. And really the only option is WordPress. And the key with that though is more important than the functionality, it's the design. And so with the design work, it needs to be high quality, professional level design. It can't look like it was, it can't look like it was thrown together. And there's a reason for that. Everything that I do has to do with human psychology. I love the brain hacking part, right? Yeah. And here's the thing is, if you start, Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Blink, and he talks about this concept called thin slicing. And again, evolutionary traits. These types of people like consistency, right? And habits. Habits are really, really hard to break in human beings, and largely we develop habits for self-protection. And so he gives the example in Blink. He talks about, when you're in an unfamiliar situation or something that maybe is a little nerve-wracking or scary, the hair stands up on the back of your head. Well, that's your body telling you. You have this this reaction, reptilian brain reaction, telling you that there's danger around, and it makes you take notice. And this concept of thin slicing, we've evolved over time to be able to assess situations to protect ourselves very, very quickly. And so the idea, the concept, the idea between something that's visual, a visual reference versus a document or a written reference, people make decisions, even though they may not want to do this, they make them aesthetically, right? So what something looks like makes a massive difference in someone deciding whether or not they'll actually put enough time and attention or energy into digging deeper to find out information. So like using the right quality images, or the right style of images, like if a client's in a local area, we tell them use images that are landmarks that people that are looking for you recognize as home. Because what's important about that is when they instantly get to your website, if they're looking you up by name because they're searching for you because they've been referred, they know that you're, if it's a local market related service, they know that in Seattle, if they see the Space Needle, they know in the background image on their website, it's the right person, right? There's a connection, right? And like you just said, authority images or affiliation images, things that you support, those are ways to draw connection using imagery. So again, that's the first one. There's tons of things about this thing, but those are a couple of ideas with that. The second thing is brand consistency. So it's not just people think about their website as an island. Like this is, like maybe it's their own private Tahiti or whatever. It's not really about your website. The hardest thing to do to get people to do is to actually change their behavior, which means something like coming to a website they otherwise wouldn't have been looking for. Yep. So you could spend thousands and thousands of dollars to build this magnificent website with tons of functionality and everything, but the hardest thing to do is get good, qualified, interested traffic there. And so you have to reach out to people where they're already hanging out. And so largely that's social media. And so it's things like making sure that your presence in the website extends out to all those platforms, so that it's like why Starbucks and Coca-Cola spend millions and millions of dollars a year to make sure their brand looks the same everywhere you see them. You need to do that as an individual person or small company. Make sure that your brand looks bigger than you, right? You do that through consistency. Consistency breeds credibility. Credibility leads to trust. Trust leads to dollars at the end of the day. And so that's really, that's the second thing is just brand consistency. The third thing is content. So we talk about blog content a lot, but that can be, we can get video content is like the next level. But in our case, just well-written, professionally crafted, credibility building content published on a frequent basis elevates your level of credibility when someone's looking you up. So they know that you're still engaged in the industry. Like if you have a blog site, like you spent the money to get a blog, but the last time you updated it was 3 years ago.
We were literally just talking about this before you got in. Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't do you any favors. In fact, it probably detracts from you because people say, oh, they're not on top of the game. So consistency is important. Now, really good distinction here. Like, does it matter that you wrote the content? Probably not. That's
a question I want to get into down the road, but
probably not. I mean, from the individual user remember that the user, they're just trying to validate the referral at this point. So all they need to do is see relevant content to the industry that makes you look like an expert, that has you as the byline that you wrote it, right? They don't care. They don't care. They're not going to go, people ask us all the time, well, what if someone in my office sees that, or we have the same content? Well, first of all, the people going to your website aren't going to the person in your office's website. They're only going there because they were referred to you, right? So it's unique to their eyeballs, and that's all that matters, because all we're trying to do here is take that most interested client and get them across this credibility gap. And so we want to have frequently updated content that's relevant. Now, the good news about that is it's easy to automate and it's inexpensive to fulfill. So you can do this way less expensive than having to go try to hire writers to be able to write for you, or to sit down yourself and try to write out posts, which salespeople are horrible at, right? So that's, there's some ways that you, again, systematize this stuff and automate it that help it, that makes it work and makes it work best for the type of client who's actually going to do business with you. So again, content is that's the third thing. The fourth thing is social. I mentioned social media before, but that's really the fifth thing. Is the key is actively updated social profiles. And so the reason that you do that, I all the time people say, but I don't like Twitter, but I don't like, you know what? I don't love Twitter either. I mean, I don't use it. Lots of people do. I just have never, it's never connected for me. I use Snapchat with my kids more than I use Twitter, right? Jason, my sales manager, he uses Twitter so effectively to connect with people like all the time, big names. I mean, crazy, like Gary Vaynerchuk's team and people like that he's opened up conversations for us with just in the last 30 days.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. By just leveraging Twitter and stuff. So, it can be a really effective tool as well. But my point with social media is that in marketing, you have to reach out to people where they're already hanging out. They expect to be able to find you there. And likely, because of the nature of the way communities are built online, which are the reason social media exploded the way it is, it's the best replica or analog of how we work in community offline, right? And so that's why it's been so adopted so heavily. Lots of referrals. I'll tell you a quick story. One of our clients told us this. So a gal that he knew on Facebook referred him through Facebook to someone else who wanted to sell her apartment. And so she just came back and went to his Facebook business page, which had been built by us, custom branding that matched his website, updated everyday business content updated, saw the information, clicked through there, went to his website, then contacted him. She then listed her condo with him and then subsequently went to buy her next home with him. Okay. Now, this guy happens to be in Campbell, California. Average sales price in Campbell, California is $1.3 million. Wow. Okay. Wow. So when you do the simple math on this of what he, 2.5% commission on each of the two transactions, whatever the average are, it's like $50,000 in commission. Pretty big win for social marketing, right? You start to feel like, what's the ROI? Well, you have to be present there because people are connecting and telling each other. That's the nature of referrals too, in this case. And you have to be present in those social networks. And again, the good news is you can automate a lot of those processes. So you can update your Twitter feed with the content you publish into your blog, automatically put a connection, the headline into your Twitter feed with a link back to the blog post, and update that every single business day without ever having to turn it on or ever logging in. And so there's lots of ways that we use tools to be able to automate all these processes, make sure people are active. Another little side benefit of having actively updated social profiles is if you think about search engine optimization, which is this black hole, right?
I love these.
That even the experts in SEO still, now they don't know how to do it really. I mean, it's really all just about unique content. It's egregiously expensive. Yeah. There is no tricks anymore. You can't do all the link wheels and backlinking and all the other kind of SEO tricks that used to be around. The search engines are too smart now. Yeah. And so it really is all about content. But here's the beauty of it there's been such a lot of misconception out there. If we know that 90% of the clients who are actually going to turn into paying clients for us are actually the only search term they're really going to look for us is by name, then what's the only thing you have to rank for?
Your name,
your company name.
Exactly.
That's the only thing that really matters. What's really cool is because social networks like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all these social networks, within search algorithms, they're weighted very heavily. They're trusted platforms, right? Because people have to be identified. And so what ends up happening, and we see this all the time, is as we start to update, even if we are just setting up their social networks and then we're updating them frequently, those index really well for what? Their name, right? Yeah. They all of a sudden they start to own the front page of Google for their name in all these variable networks. Now, the reason that makes sense and is valuable to clients is because it might be a client who they have a favorite social media network. It might be Twitter. Even though they never so that's the pathway that gets them back in and engaged into the website. Exactly. Is they go to Twitter because they like Twitter. They see that you're actively updating. You have a presence there. It's got a nice image that makes you look professional. They click that link. It takes them back to your blog, which now has updated information, that content, right? In a professionally presented digital real estate, right? Yep. And all of a sudden now we're starting to close that credibility gap. Okay. So that's the other part, social network participation. The next one is engaged email list. So email used to be like, that's the opt-in, right? Get an email list, market to people. There's some big changes right now with email. I know you guys are paying attention too, but like Frank Kern talks about all the time, the pixel is the new email address, right? It's really just retargeting. But the reality is that it's still the most intimate, permission-based way that you can communicate with people online, right? So if you can gather people's email addresses, then do an effective job about communicating, not selling to them through email, but building value and continue to communicate and building trust, then that's a really important additional tool that you would use. So that's the next step, okay? I should have backed up because there's really 3 phases. Basically, it's just the presence, the image is the first phase. The second one is communication. And that's it. Credibility. So the first one is credibility. So it's how you look online. The second one is communication. Once people find you online, how do you communicate effectively? So that was content, social marketing, and email newsletters. Yep. And the third one is connection or community. And this is where it really goes on steroids. So this is the most important thing. But the thing to understand is you can't do these top ones effectively without having the foundation put in place. That's why there's a pathway and you follow it. It's literally, I can get you guys the roadmap and you can show it on the video. But there's the pathway you follow and it's all built one on the other. So once we get to the top level, communication is really where it takes this offline trust factor that drives all real business and gives you the ability to display that. And so the first one is ratings, reviews, and testimonials, right? So we call that raving fans. So it's you have to have a way to systematically and continuously resource and display high quality ratings, reviews, and testimonials. In fact, it literally is the single most important conversion factor for people considering to use a product or service online is third-party testimonial evidence. And so the good news again is there's great software products that are out there. We have a software product within our service stack that we deliver that includes that. We call it Review Rocket. But there are other services too that do cultivation of ratings, reviews, and testimonials. They're all smart softwares. They virtually all have the same exact feature sets. And you just have to figure out which one you want to use. But you have to have a plan in place. And the key to this is anything not systematized is probably not getting done. So if it's left to someone to have to manually do it, probably won't get done. Yeah. And so that's the key of using software or using systems to do this. But cultivating those and displaying those, I always give the Amazon example. Interestingly enough, I actually was doing more research as I've developed this whole concept and teaching people about it. But did you know this, that 1995 was the year I started in the mortgage business, right? I graduated from college, started in the mortgage business in 1995. So in my slide deck, I talk about the fact that I'm sitting on their side of the table because this all comes from my background in their industry sales, that kind of thing, doing relationship-based sales. But what was interesting, I didn't know this, but I was looking into, because I've always known the importance of ratings, reviews, and testimonials. 1995 was a critical date also. Amazon was only selling books in 1995. Okay, you go to the Wayback Machine and look at their website. It's like this little text-based site with like the blue and purple text, like hyperlinks and all that. So what's really interesting is 1995 was the revolutionary shift, the beginning of it's like the big bang of what became Web 2.0. And so they were the first company in the history of the internet to leave this billboard-based one-way conversation that was really just like a business card or pamphlet or a brochure. That was Web 1.0 into the two-way communication of the web. And what that was is they were the first company ever to offer the ability for their clients to review the books that they bought. Okay. And they started to develop the platform of online reviews, which was this pretty funny because as I'm was going through this, like, holy crap, that was the year, and they were the first company, and they leveraged that ratings and reviews and testimonials and a lot of other social marketing to now grow into one of the largest retailers in the world, right? So what's interesting about that is I use this example when I talk to people in presentations all the time, both live presentations, people raise their hands, or in digital ones when I have them answering in the box or on a poll. Last time you went to Amazon and you looked at any product or service to buy, before you actually push the buy button, did you go down and look at the reviews and testimonials? 100%. 100% of the time. And not just you, but everybody does it. So these are the things that you look at brain psychology and you look at how do you connect online marketing to brain psychology? Because at the end of the day, no matter how many bells and whistles you could develop, no matter how many whiz bang new tactics you could figure out, all these kind of things, the only thing at the end of the day that matters is how a human being's brain converts the process to actually decide to push that buy button and put in their credit card, right? And so And so the big shift that's happened, the big change is it's all about ratings, reviews. It's all about referrals, because you can consider those reviews the same as referrals, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But the big shift, the big change is that 15 years ago, you relied on only people that you know for referrals. Your trusted network was only people you know. But now, how many people that left those reviews on Amazon did you know?
Zero.
Right? And no one does. And yet we put more faith into what people we don't know say about a product or service than what we put in what the company says about their own service. So individual real estate agents, attorneys, financial planners, doctors, everybody in service-based businesses needs to understand is that no matter how many accolades they can put out about themselves, no matter how well they can talk about themselves and embellish themselves, and no matter how beautiful of a website you can put together saying how wonderful your firm is, it will matter. It will be a tiny percentage as effective as having 10 glowing customer reviews of your service.
Yep. And do you think it matters whether it's just, hey, look at the testimonials, or should it be come in through a third party service? Like, hey, check out our Google reviews or Yelp review, whatever it may be. Cause it's, I don't know, we're doing more video testimonials because it helps build that relationship a bit more. But I mean, just what are your thoughts on, I mean, most website builders, you can throw in testimonials. And I mean, there's been people that, I mean, put fake stuff in, but is that still effective?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that waiting for people, I think we see this all the time with our clients. They're like, well, how can I get more Google reviews? How can I get more Facebook reviews? Well, here's the thing is, first of all, you ask them to do the review, but it really does. You have to make that process happen. Meaning you have to pick up the phone and say, hey, thanks for the review or this review. Can you go to Facebook right now? I mean, like walk them through it, right? Because people don't. They just won't take the time. So you really have to work for those third-party reviews most of the time. And the downside of that is that the people who are angry or upset with you, they're the ones that will go leave the review. So you have to be cognizant of this, and you have to take a proactive approach. But the easiest way to start is to have a good quality software that you control and actually post those. So at the end of the day, do I think it matters? First of all, integrity is critical. And so people that would put fake reviews on their stuff probably will be found out relatively quickly in the engagements when they get together with people, because they're just not reliable people anyway. So I think that a person has to take action and have something in place for themselves that they can control and place them there first, and then give people the option to go to those social networks and do that. And then if it's really important and not organic where people are going to the social networks, then they have to put a plan in place to physically get those reviews in. Do I think it's important to have high quality Facebook reviews, Google reviews, Yelp if you like Yelp? Some people hate Yelp, whatever.
A lot of people hate Yelp.
But the point is that, if you want those reviews out there, are they important? Yes. Does it give an extra level of validation? I think for people that really understand review systems, yes, because they know that they can't be spoofed, right? I think for the average consumer, no. I think the average consumer, just by the time they're getting to the review and testimonial part, they've seen the high quality website. They've seen the, if they came in through a third party, like a social network, they've seen that brand consistency, which just, subconsciously builds trust. They've seen updated content. By the time they're also now digging in, this is when people are digging in deeper, right? They're digging into the reviews section of the site. I think now they're just really just checking boxes, right? Okay. Yeah. Oh, look at these reviews. These people say they're great. Well, they must be. They look professional. They've got great content. And then the last piece is, and I know you're going to really like this because you guys also specialize in this too, is really audience retargeting. Retargeting.
Huge proponent. And it's so underutilized and
And so here's the thing that I think most businesses need to understand about ads in general. When you look at effectiveness of ads, it's so cost effective to run audience retargeting ads of people who are already exposed to you at some level. Mm-hmm. And if you understand advertising, and again, take it back to people's own experience. Like when you go out to a website, and any website of any kind, do you spend a lot of time taking a notice and interest in the ads that are on the site of any site? Mm-hmm. No, because for 15 years on the internet, what have we been trained to do? Tune out ads, right? There's even software out there that you download, ad blocker, right? That blocks the ads. People are annoyed by ads. So psychologically, we've been trained on the internet to disregard ads, okay? Really cool thing. So broad-based ads of wide audiences that have cold traffic are more expensive.
Oh yeah.
Way more difficult to convert. Virtually impossible. I mean, if you look at the statistics, I mean, it's for some
97% do not convert.
Right.
I mean, that's
widget-based business. If you're selling a $20 thing, I buy it all the time. Instagram ads, right? I see a thing. It's like whiz bang. Oh, that looks pretty cool. So, and I end up ordering it, whatever. But if it's something simple, a $20, $30 purchase, that's a totally different ball game. But when we're talking about $1,000 plus, $500 $500 plus services, $1,000 plus services. It's a different mindset. We've been talking this whole time about how human beings think that through, right? And use technology to help them make these decisions. So the key to advertising is that you want to grow the biggest audience possible, but not just a cold audience. You want to build an audience that somehow has a connection to you. And then you leverage that. Well, the beauty of it is, again, it's super inexpensive to run audience retargeting ads, right? Because it's a much smaller universe of people that could possibly see the ads. And it's more effective. And here's the reason it's more effective that people really need to get to grasp. So there's this thing in your brain called a reticular activation system. And it's, again, one of these things that you can't change. As every human being is the same. It's evolved over thousands of years. It helps to protect us. And it's when things are important to you, like they have an emotional connection to you or something that's important to you, you take notice more than you would otherwise. Let's just say, for instance, I just got a red Corvette. Okay. So I've never ever thought I'd get a Corvette ever, but decided on a whim that would be a fun thing to have. It's like it's a used Corvette, inexpensive car, but it's like a big go-kart, right? Yeah. And it's fun to drive. So anyway, I got this red Corvette. So the reticular activation system, once I own that, I never thought I would own it before, but all of a sudden you start seeing red Corvettes all over the place or whatever, just replace it with whatever you want, right? But the point to this is that your brain can't let you not notice things that are important to you, right? That you've made a decision about or you've been introduced to. So in the same thing about advertising, this is why we teach people with audience retargeting, is that if it's a face or a name of someone that you know, and that's why your face is super important in the ad. Because if they've been introduced to you, even if it's been a digital introduction and now they're in your audience because you've pixeled them, right? They visited your site or whatever. Their brain won't, you still notice the ad. Your brain takes in so much more information than what you actually, it filters all this stuff, but your brain won't let you not notice someone you recognize on the page. And so when you start using that, the point is, will someone click on the ad and actually do something? Because everybody wants the ROI, right? I want the stats. Trust me, man, it doesn't work like that. That's not how people want stats driven.
Understanding attribution is the key to that, knowing that the first touch point isn't going to be what converts, but it's
that long term. It's that frequency, right? It's a frequency of appearance creates top of mind awareness, which leads to trust and credibility, which leads to action at the point the action's needed. But the thing is, you want to train that person's brain to, when they think about your category, whatever your service is, that they say, Dustin's the guy. Right? That's the guy that I'm thinking about for this particular thing because he's been frequently updated in my brain. I haven't even needed to really take notice purposefully, consciously, but subconsciously it's been rebranded in my brain so many times. And I had a touch point, I had an exposure that connected those two things. And that's what drives people to make decisions. And so that's the seventh thing. So that's the 7 credibility markers. If someone puts those in place, those 7 things, there's literally nothing else that they really need to do online. Yeah. You can get incremental benefit from running sales funnels, like cold traffic stuff. I'll give you one last example of this. I was sitting, there's a guy here in Phoenix, and you probably know, his name's Russell Shaw. He's a real estate agent, runs the biggest TV budget in the Phoenix marketplace. Massive, been around for a long time in the real estate industry. So obviously you don't know who he is. Okay. No. But he always says this tagline is like, I'm not taking a listing, I'm applying for a job type of thing. That's his tagline thing that he's always saying in these ads. I was at a referral marketing conference with this guy, Michael Mayer, another great guy. I've spoken with him a number of different times on, different events, spoken at events, and runs a referral-based marketing company in the real estate space. But he was doing a big event here in Phoenix, and he had a panel of people come in that were high producers that were all relationship-based, referral-driven marketers in the real estate space. Well, Russell Shaw is sitting on this panel. You have to understand, this guy, I don't know what their budget is, but it's in the hundreds of thousands, if not, I mean, it's a ton, because they ran a ton of TV ads around the valley. And so someone in the audience called him out on that. They're like, well, we see you all the time on TV. We're talking referral-based marketing and none of this advertising even makes sense and all this. So you run all these ads. Why do you do it? So his answer was really instructive and interesting. And he said, here's the thing that he said, we've been in this business for, I don't know, at the time it was like 40 years in the valley, right? And we have a massive, massive customer base. And he said, you have to understand something, that all of our business that we do is driven by our referral marketing strategies, exactly like what Mikel's teaching today. He said, the only reason we run the ads largely is because we have such a big customer base. It reinforces us to all the people that we already do business with. He said, do we incrementally get someone that calls us just because we're running TV ads? Yeah. Yes. He said, it does. We get an incremental bump off of that, but it's not really enough to actually pay for the expenditure. Mm-hmm. But what we immediately do is put them into all of our referral marketing systems. And that's what drives our business. And it was instructive to understand if people can get out of the one thing that I see that the educator had, right? I want to help people, right? And the one thing is that people get caught, they get taken down this line online of spending so much money trying to change marketing and sales from outside of the actual human experience. Like they want it to work because it works digitally, but it doesn't connect to the way human beings work. And it's so costly. It's so damaging to people's businesses. It's so much misinformation. And for people that are practitioners of that really believe that they have an expertise in it, they do actually. Lots of times you can be an expert in something. You can physically deliver a service that you promise. It still may be ineffective at actually, getting a client that closes, right? Yeah. And so that's the biggest thing that I want to share with people is like, if they look at these seven steps, they put these check boxes in place, and then all you have to do is go out and then focus on the stuff that builds the biggest local audience, like gets the most people out there, make those personal connections, build influencing relationships with people who are good influencers out in your world. Again, going back to why you connect with people things that you're already passionate about. And build the biggest audience in your local market, you will win. But the digital solution, the combination with Referral Giant, which is this I'm launching this digital platform, which is really about the intersection of online and offline marketing. It's about how these thought processes work and how you connect the online and offline space. If people understand that, then they're freed. They're released from all of this craziness of having to chase all of these online dragons and just focus on these 7 things, get those things in place, know that you've knocked it out of the park with those 7 things, and then go do the things that are the high dollar activities in your business, and you will win. Because it's the biggest audience with the most frequent, touch points, build the most offline people telling you people about your business, and then you win.
That's amazing. There's a lot of good stuff. And I mean, the whole retargeting thing, I mean, that's a lot of the reason why we do this is, I mean, 1, it's fun to have these conversations. I've learned so much. But 2, it's, I mean, just marketing on YouTube, literally introducing your brand on YouTube. YouTube marketing, you're looking at 2 to 3 cents for someone to watch 30 seconds or more. And then you can retarget those people who have watched it. And then from here, there's going to be lots of clips from this one. Yeah. But then it's, I mean, over the course of 10 episodes, we have 100 pieces of content that you can retarget with that keeps the face and everything top of mind. And then when those people go and do the search for content marketing, digital marketing agencies, stuff like that, you can retarget them whenever they're at that bottom of the funnel. And chances are they're going to choose you whenever they've seen your ugly mug 100 times and whatever it may be. But love everything that you just went through, because that's, I mean, it's figuring out how to produce content in each of those 7 phases. I mean, is literally the roadmap to winning. And if you can do it effectively, and the psychology part is just so huge, and it just builds that relationship. And then when they're ready to make that decision, you've already built that relationship. They've bought in, they've seen reviews, you're top of mind, they're ready to buy. And that's literally how you build that relationship. That is so cool.
It is. And just, you're right. And the key to that too, is that you now can charge what you're worth. Instead of like, if you don't do this type of stuff, you're always trying to be the low cost leader, because it's really the only way you compete. Like once people see you as the expert, like because you've delivered so much value through this and education and things that you've done and delivered it in that megaphone way, right? Yeah. With that retargeting and video, especially video, people get away from price shopping you as much because they just want your expertise. And that's not to say, like, I've always been, I'm a relatively, like when I said the Corvette thing, I felt guilty because it's like, I don't want to put it out there. Like I'm this guy, like, dude, I bought a used Corvette. It's inexpensive. And it was literally a little fun. Like I said, it's a glorified go-kart, but because I'm a pretty cost conscious person myself. I mean, I've always been that way. I was raised in an entrepreneurial family that was like, there's, always afraid it's not going to work out. There's never going to be enough. And so you're always and you have to get out of that scarcity mentality, sometimes. But what I'm saying is that you can give people a great deal for the value you deliver. And when they see you as the expert that you are, you're then capable to say to them, no, look, you've seen all of this. I am an expert in this space. And therefore, here's what I charge. You could go price shop me, but this is what I'm worth. Yeah. And I know I can deliver. And you also know it because you have this exposure and you have this ability. You've been able to prove to yourself through your own research that I am who I'm telling you who I am. Right. And at the end of the day, that's what I think that's the best application of technology is the internet is for businesses, is being able to paint that picture let let people come to that determination through the picture that you paint on your own through those digital resources.
Yeah. No, it's been great because I've been doing this for about 8 years now, but I only know from the big brands and all that, working at agencies, but we're finally have enough revenue coming in, and this next Wednesday we're sitting down and talking about our strategy and everything like that. But everything that you just mentioned is exactly what's on the agenda. Is how do we introduce, how do we then stay top of mind through different pieces of content. And so it's cool to hear. It kind of validates that, hey, we're on the right track. And that's really cool. Kind of as we wrap up, there's everyone nowadays knows that they need to produce more content. What's the biggest piece of advice you have for someone that knows that they should be doing it, they're on the edge, and what piece of advice do you have to get them to just go? Yeah.
So 2 things. Number one is if you sit around and think that you're going to write it yourself, I mean, if you're in business, unless you're a writer, unless that's your job as you're a writer, you have to outsource it. So you have to come up with a strategy to outsource content. From a blog content perspective, I think and I'm going to preface this. There's a difference between video for sure, or written content. Written content you have to outsource because it's too time consuming. For someone who is a knowledge based, your value comes from knowledge, right? That if it's a service that you provide, then the value that you provide to the marketplace comes through your knowledge and expertise, right? You just can't afford to write content yourself. I mean, it's something that you could hire a team member if you want to hire someone to do it, to bring it in house. You can use third-party platforms. There's lots of platforms out there that have content writers on that you just do it yourself and manage the process. I wouldn't recommend, inexpensive overseas writers for American content. It just won't fit the expertise, label. But at the same time, like, I do think you need to find a good quality way to outsource that one way or the other. Either you hire an assistant or to do that kind of writing, or you outsource to a firm, agency, or even a company like ours, which do channel-driven content that we can do it for a less price. It's not unique, but it's going to fit the bill for that.
Yep.
Secondarily, on the video thing, I think the easy path, and you hear a lot of people say this, is everybody's packing around plenty of a supercomputer in their pocket to shoot short, authentic videos. And you have to get over, if you really want to maximize it, you have to get over the same fear that I have. You talked about the same. I mean, I think all of us share this fear, even those of us that are in digital, unless you're one of the beat my own chest guys or gals that really like that. I mean, we all have to get over the fear of putting ourselves on camera and making ourselves look foolish, possibly, or we feel like we're always our biggest self-critic, right? So you have to get over that piece and use the tools that you have at hand immediately to do some basic things. One strategy I'll just give you is that, what are the 10 biggest questions someone asks you about your business? Think that through for a second. Like, what are the questions you answer over and over again? Just do 10 quick videos answering those questions. Put them on your blog. Make each one a blog post. Set it up so that it's a group of a directory so that people can go through when they come to your website. That's a good way to use video. Obviously, you have a YouTube channel, put them on your YouTube channel, the most frequently asked questions. That's an easy pathway to start getting some video content. And even that simple little thing, once it's done, adds a huge amount of value. And then if you really want to, depending on the business and the category, if you really want to, get that higher level, the thing going through my mind is finished product, right? So I do think there's 2 different styles of video. There's the authentic, raw, just Gary Vaynerchuk sitting at the coffee table thing, which is great. That's awesome, and I think people enjoy that. I think there is value in some level of working with a studio too, for certain types of video or certain things. That's one of the things I'm excited. I saw your guys' stuff, and honestly, some of the best video editing that I've seen from really in a couple of years probably of. I think you guys do extremely high quality stuff. Yeah. And cutting edge and unique. And just to throw out there, that's why we switched. We were going to go to my place to do the thing. I saw your guys' video. I was like, no way, I'm going to their place. Right. And I carved that time out of my schedule because I wanted to come see your guys' location and the way you put your stuff together because it's so high quality. And I just want to emphasize that for people to take a look at this, that yes, you can create a ton of authentic video. Yes, you should be doing that. Yes, you can do it right now. Get started. Also, there is room though to talk to people who are experts in their craft, and that's where I'm at in business, and something I'm excited to talk to you guys about as well. So, it's cool. Content, but the key is that the first thing is you have to, that you can't not do it. If you don't put a content marketing strategy in place starting to 2020 going forward, I just don't see how a business can be competitive in the next 2 years. I mean, it is the qualifier. It's what people are starting. They've become trained now. It's what they're looking for to validate whether or not they should use a business. And if you don't have a strategy in place and aren't implementing it, you're going to lose.
The frequently asked questions, tell people to even go to Quora and look at what people are asking in your industry and just answer those. But having a healthy mix of the authentic, just shoot from your phone, because that helps create the relationship, but also having a little bit more highly produced stuff helps show that you're bigger than what you might be.
That's it.
And so just having a healthy mix of everything, I think is the way to go. Yeah. Do appreciate your time, and where can people find you and your business?
Sure. MySMARTblog.com is the easiest place to go. That's our company. If you're not in the real estate and mortgage space, I will say that we're broadening. That's one of the restarts. 6 months ago, I decided that we were going to go to a different level, and we're building a platform so we can do content creation for literally any business category. So if you're interested in channel-driven content at a very cost-effective rate on a subscription basis, then contact us there at MySMARTblog.com. And we'll be, again, don't have a firm launch date on Referral Giant, but that's going to be a fun project. It's a community platform really to just really focus on the teaching aspect of how digital technology really connects the human in the offline world.
Awesome.
So,
well, appreciate your time.
Great. Thanks a lot, Dustin. Appreciate it.